Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this study committee on strategies and public policies. So, we have a light agenda tonight, and we will, that being said, there's only 147 pages, but I'm convinced that Luc and his partner will help him tonight. They will go through quite quickly. So, with this being said, welcome to everyone. And Luc, the floor is yours. Luc Richard. Thank you, Your Worship, members of council. Tonight, we want to present the result of the community survey that was done in the fall 2020. I have Claude Perrault from Meredith Research who will talk on this report and then we'll answer your questions. Good evening and welcome. Thank you very much. I will try to see if I can share my screen. And so I believe
OK, je pense que là, vous devriez voir.
here you should. No, it's coming. There, you should see. Yeah, it's done. Okay, thanks.
J'ai une mauvaise écran, j'ai quelques écrans ici. Alors,
I have a few screens. Let's change this. I would like to thank you for the opportunity to present the results of our latest survey that was done with the citizens of the city of Dieppe. And I will present the main results. It should take about 20 minutes. And what we can do is maybe I can take questions as we go along. So maybe after each sections, I will give you the opportunity to ask questions. And at the end, we'll go over the whole thing. Then you can ask questions in general, if you so wish. So, survey, just to give you an overview of the survey. It's a survey that was done in 2011, 2014, 2017. And the results that I'm presenting is for the last one that was done in the fall of 2020. The purpose of the survey is simply to identify or determine the opinion of the people relating to some elements of the city of Dieppe, the place as to and to measure the offer of the programs and services that are and the management also of the city. So it would be the two main items to be discussed tonight. The inquiry survey was done from 300 telephone interviews from November the 16th to December of last year. So 5.6%. It's important in the evaluation when we look at this. We look at the margin of error to identify the statistic validity of the results. So if there is a difference between two answers or two sector of the population that is over 5.6%, we can say that there is a lack of confidence in the opinion, and that's how we manage the margin of error. Another thing, the data were weighted as to the age and the gender also of the citizens. And this allow us, in fact, to make sure that the results are representative or at least statistically representative of the population from these data according to these criteria. So we will go
autre chose
directly
qu'on fait ici,
in
c'est vraiment
the
de parler un petit peu des
main
perceptions
results.
par
We'll
rapport
talk about the
aux
perception
communautés
as
de
to the
Dieppe.
community of
Globalement,
Dieppe, and
l'évaluation
globally, the
de la
evaluation
ville de Dieppe
of the city
actuellement
of Dieppe
demeure
uh,
principalement
remain globally,
positive. Nous avons
generally
plusieurs
speaking,
aspects.
positive.
Premièrement, ce qu'on va voir,
And
c'est que
more
la
especially, what we
communauté
will see
se
in the
sent
next
plus
slides
appartenance et plus
is
proche
that the feeling of belonging
de
and the
l'environnement.
pride of the population is very
Deuxièmement,
strong, and the
contrairement aux
quality of life
États-Unis,
keeps
par
being
contre, par rapport aux
recognized. But the
loisirs et à
opinion
la vie
as to
culturelle,
leisure,
un peu par rapport à la
recreation, and
ville,
cultural
est un
life
peu moins favorable
is
globalement.
slightly less
Ça, c'est un
favorable,
peu
if you wish.
sérieux, mais ce sont des
Not
éléments
very serious,
qui sont
but
sortis
these
à
are
l'évidence lors de cette
things that
évaluation.
came out
Donc,
at
des
on the
endroits où il
survey.
pourrait y avoir des améliorations.
Maybe there could be some
Maintenant,
improvement.
au niveau
If we start
fierté, alors une
by the
fierté
pride,
élevée,
it's very high. It total
96% de la population
96% of the population
qui est fière
is very proud
de vivre
of
dans la
living
communauté, surtout la communauté de
in
Dieppe.
the community
Et
of Dieppe.
cette proportion-là va
And
varier
this
entre ceux qui
ratio
se disent assez fiers
is
et ceux
between
qui se
those that
disent
says very
fiers
proud and
de la
quite
communauté.
proud of the
Euh,
community in
Actuellement,
general.
ici, le niveau global
The global level
de
of pride, it
fierté
means the total
est
level of
similaire,
pride, is
indépendamment de la
similar
langue des gens.
independently on the
Ici,
language
dans le
being
cercle
used. But in the small
qu'on
square
voit,
that you see,
on note que le
we
sentiment
note
est plus
that the feeling
prononcé chez les
is
francophones,
higher with the
56%,
francophone. 56% of
de la
francophones
communauté.
say that they're
Et cette
very proud
proportion-là, elle est
of
de
the community,
33%
and
chez les
that
anglophones.
ratio is 33% with the anglophones and
Et
38%
définitivement, les gens qui sont
with people that are bilingual or household
On
that are bilingual.
va aussi regarder les perceptions
We
par rapport à
look
la
at the
qualité
perception
de
as
vie.
to the
Et
quality
ici,
of
c'est
life.
donné
And here we
depuis
have data
depuis 2011.
since
Donc,
2011.
Dieppe
In this
continue
case,
d'être un
Dieppe
endroit qui est
continues
perçu comme
to
étant
be
une bonne
uh,
qualité de vie.
conceived as having a
83%
good quality of life.
considèrent que
83% of the
pensent que la
population
qualité de vie
believe that
est
the
bonne
quality of
ou
life
excellente.
is good or excellent
Et on a
in
une
Dieppe.
échelle de 1 à
And
10.
we had a
1
scale of 1 to
serait
10. 1
mauvaise
was
et
bad.
10,
If you
meilleure.
want,
Qu'est-ce que ça veut
I
dire?
think
1
that that's clear.
signifiait
1
10 signifiait excellente
meant
et 10
excellent.
signifiait mauvaise, exactement.
No, 10 was
Et
excellent and
on
1
va
was very bad.
regarder notre
By grouping
en
the
réalité
different, we
83%
noticed that
de la
83%
population
of the
anglophone
population
trouve qu'il y a une bonne qualité de vie à Dieppe.
find that there is a good
Et
quality of life
ce
in the app.
pourcentage-là, il est
And
équivalent
this
à 3 ans.
sharing
Il y a
is
3
the
ans, il
same as
était
3 years
plus
ago.
élevé
It's slightly higher
qu'en
than
2014,
in
tout en
2014.
continuant dans la lignée de
However,
2011.
it's similar to
Donc,
2011. Now,
l'opinion, elle est
the opinion
plus prononcée chez les
is
francophones,
stronger
alors
with the
qu'opinion des
francophone,
anglophones
even though the
systématiquement
opinion
élevée
of the
depuis
anglophone
6 ans,
did
alors
improve
qu'au
for
terme
the
de
last 6 years.
l'étude, les
If we
francophones,
look here,
96%
francophone,
de la population
96% of the
éligible
population in
trouve que
2020,
francophone
the francophone
trouve
population
qu'il y a une bonne qualité de vie
found
à
that
Dieppe.
there is a
Cependant, le
great quality of life. That
60,
ratio,
pardon, 74% des anglophones
94% on the
ont
anglophone.
l'impression
It's an
que
increase,
depuis
a
2014,
continuous
les
increase since
francophones ont un
2014. And the
comportement
increase, we
inférieur au
really
moyen.
realize
La
it,
note moyenne sur
is the
7
average
est passée de
mark
7,7
that went from
en 2014
7.7
à
in
8,0
2014
en
to
2017.
8.0 in 2017 to 8.2
Ce qui est
in
intéressant, c'est que les
2028.
autorités
What is
francophones,
interested
quand
in
on
our
regarde la
results,
moyenne,
by looking at the average,
on enlève
we
finalement
take away, we
les
remove
gens, les répondants, les citoyens,
the
citoyennes qui
people who answers
n'ont pas
who have
d'opinion,
no opinion or
c'est-à-dire
did not
si
offer
on
any opinion.
compare des pommes et des pommes d'année en année,
Compare
pas
apple with apple
les,
year after
les
year,
résultats diminuent ou
and
augmentent, mais
the
on a quand même
results
l'impression d'une
uh,
qualité de vie
uh,
meilleure
go
ou
down or go up,
plus
but at least we have all the
agréable.
same
On a aussi
comparison.
une meilleure
By
idée
looking at the average, we have a better idea on year after year.
Dieppe
So
se démarque particulièrement
the app
sur l'offre d'un environnement de
comes
vie
out
qui est plaisant,
with
agréable,
its offer of quality of life
paisible,
that is
paisible, qui permet
nice,
justement quand les gens
peaceful,
il fait bon,
cordial and
et
where it's nice, it's
les
good to
différentes
raise a family.
pays
The city
qui
is
ont
perceived as a
utilisé
city that
des
is
méthodes
very
très différentes
joyous.
qui ont été
These are
données
qualitative that
dans
were
public en
given
indépendant
by the
dans les
public
enquêtes. Donc, ce n'est
in the
pas
inquiry
des
or
questions de
survey.
réponse ouverte,
They
c'est
were
des
not choice of
questions
answer. They were answers that were given by the population
on a aussi
themselves.
demandé aux gens
We also
quelles
asked the
activités
people what would be the action
pourraient être entreprises par
that
le
could
conseil
be
municipal
undertaken by
pour
the
aider les
municipal council to
populations.
improve the quality of
Donc,
life in Dieppe.
c'était une question à
It
réponse
was
ouverte. On
a
pouvait
question
poser
with
des
open answer.
questions
There was
à
not a
tout type
choice, any
d'endroit.
choice question. We see
Donc,
here
la
in the
majorité des gens
graphic that the
disaient
majority of
qu'ils suggéraient
citizens
au moins une action
suggested at least
à prendre. Donc,
actions to be taken.
il y a environ le deux
So
tiers, je crois, ou
approximately
60%,
two-thirds,
70%,
60,
qui
70%, I believe,
suggéraient au moins
uh,
une action. Et on peut voir aussi une
suggested
action
some
qui a été
actions. We
suggérée.
can
Bien, les
see
populations
here
varient et ce
to
sont
what was
les
suggested. It
principales
varies.
subventions
And these
municipales en
are the
Abitibi qui
main
sont données.
mentions.
Et
All the mentions are not here, but the main ones vary between 5%
ce
and
qui
9%.
semble
So there is nothing
problématique
that
dans tout
is
ça,
problematic as such,
c'est
if you wish.
des questions
And it
petites
seems
ou
that these
de
are
sources
small
qui
things
pourraient, entre autres,
here and
concerner
there
l'infrastructure,
that
donc
really
l'infrastructure,
uh,
l'amélioration au niveau
the new infrastructure, the
des urgences,
improvement, access to transportation. Suggestion is to the reduction of
des
taxes,
logements
the
abordables et en
increase
or.
of affordable
Aussi
housing,
d'autres questions.
the improvement of
Développement
services,
des services et des programmes. Et ça, c'était vraiment
and the
une mention
program.
générale.
This was
On veut
general
l'amélioration
mention.
continue.
We
Je
want
trouve
a
que
permanent
généralement, quand les
improvement
gens
of
font des commentaires
services
sont un peu généraux.
and permanent
Et
improvement in
il n'y a pas
general.
vraiment de
And there
problème.
is nothing that is really problematic in general.
Environ 5% des
There was
personnes qui
approximately
disaient que
5%
l'amélioration de la
of the people
circulation
that dealt with the improvement
urbaine
in recreational installation and traffic,
une amélioration des installations
better
de
traffic
loisirs.
installation.
Je vais revenir un peu sur les nouvelles
Come back on the
infrastructures.
new infrastructure, if I may, because
C'est quand même assez diversifié en tant que
it is
réponse au
quite
développement. On parle au développement du centre-ville,
diversified. The development of the
l'amélioration des programmes de
downtown, the
restauration,
increase of
attraction,
restoration, attraction, cinema, uh,
accroître le nombre de lieux de rencontre pour les
increase
jeunes,
the
l'agrandissement de la bibliothèque et des
area
infrastructures,
where you can meet,
l'aménagement
and
du
the
parc,
development of a new
d'autres
park,
mentions par
and
rapport
all
aux
kinds of
éclairages
mention
associés aux pistes cyclables. Donc,
as
ça, c'est
to
des
the
très
cyclist
ce
trail,
qu'on trouve au niveau
uh,
de l'amélioration des
things that
installations de
could
sécurité,
be
notamment
found
l'installation
with
de
the improvement or installation. But we were talking
d'autres
about
activités familiales,
recreational family
de,
activities more than anything else.
de
And
gymnase, de terrain
uh,
de pickleball,
gymnasts,
de terrain
you know,
synthétique de soccer,
soccer field, tennis,
au niveau des installations
and
sportives. On a aussi soulevé
we
l'opinion par
also
rapport à certains
ask
aspects
the opinion as to
de la
specific
communauté.
questions of the community.
Il y en a 7.
There are
Alors, on va
7,
mettre une
so
mention
we'll
sur les
look
trois autres
at the
dans les
4
prochaines
main
slides.
ones and we'll look at
Ce qui
the
est
other
à
3
noter quand même,
afterwards.
c'est que
What is to be
Dieppe
noted is that
continue d'être
Dieppe
perçue comme
continues
une
to be
communauté
perceived
une
as
excellente communauté où
an
il y a des
excellent
jeunes, donc
communication to
73%
raise a family,
de la
73%
population
of the population
d'habitants. Et si on
says that this is the
prend
case.
le
And
pourcentage qui
the
sont plus ou moins
percentage
entièrement d'accord,
which
dans ce cas-ci, c'est
agree
une échelle de
fully
10,
or
une échelle de
by
neutre
majority on
5
top,
points.
5
Alors,
different
si on
points.
donne le
If
pourcentage
we
entièrement
combine
d'accord
the
avec le Canada
percentage
avec la Dieppe,
fully
on vient
uh,
à presque
in agreement
96,
or
96%.
partially,
On est plus
96% is
proche,
very high.
et on l'a vu tout à l'heure,
And we saw earlier,
je suis certaine que ce n'est pas surprenant
I'm
pour vous,
sure
mais
that
ça,
this is
ça a été
not
mentionné
a
plusieurs fois
surprise
dans
for
les
you. It's
différents
been mentioned
résultats
uh,
à l'enquête.
with different results in the survey.
Très constant
It's
depuis
also very consistent
depuis 6 ans.
for the last 6 years in every survey. The
Dès la présentation
great
du rapport
majority of the
2018, on a
population,
eu le sentiment d'avoir
98%,
vu
have the
que,
feeling of being able
quoique Dieppe était une communauté,
leave to leave in a promising land in Dieppe for the future. It's interesting to note 97% of the population have the feeling of being able to live in the language of their choice. And what is important to note here is that that opinion is shared. There is a slight difference uh, in the language of use between French and English and the bilingual, but even with the Anglophone, that ratio that is quite high. There's a few points to raise later on. You'll see the Anglophones are slightly less satisfied than the Francophones, and the majority of citizens feel safe in their community. So 98, 97, 95%, slight decrease, but we talk about the great majority of people. There's a slight uh, disapproval, but it's noted within the percentage of people that fully agree and feel completely safe in their community. 60 to 50% in 2014 and 60 in 2020. And if we look as to the number of no answer, it's quite low, only 1%, 2% at the most. So we can depend more on that reduction. It's more realistic, more representative to what is happening in the community. As for the other elements that were assessed, the opinion of the citizen is favorable. As to the inclusion and accessibility to recreational, 97% believe that is the case. Recreation in the app and are accessible to all, but only 43% are completely in agreement with this statement. So it reflects what we see as to the wealth of the artistic and cultural life in India. So 83% globally says that they are satisfied, but that is a slight decrease compared to previous years. To, globally to the satisfaction. If we look at the environment now, well, sorry, with the environment now, we can see that 92% of the citizens believe that it's a community that is respectful of the environment. It changed somewhat from last year as to the percentage that is fully in agreement. Notice there were slight changes in the formulation of the question in 2020. So that could explain a small reason for the difference in answer between last year and this year. So that aspect had to do more with the community of Dieppe before we go to the results that have to do with municipal management. Is there any question as to what I just presented? Ladies, gentlemen, a question so far? No, it's okay. We can come back afterwards if you wish. Oh, sorry, excuse, sorry. The manager has a question. Yes, Mr. Mnason. Good evening. Thank you. The question of recreation. Did the pandemic was considered? Must we take that element that was outside our control since March? Completely eliminated our activities in the community. Is that a factor that will be considered? Yes, yes, you are completely right. In that sense, we have to understand that the survey is somewhat of a photography that is happening at a given time in life. And therefore, certainly, as to the cultural life and There is
Parce que
certainly an
malheureusement,
element to be
il
considered.
faut vraiment
Unfortunately,
souligner
we don't
l'ampleur
have a
du
question to
déficit à
uh,
ce niveau-là. Donc,
consider the importance of that impact. But
effectivement.
you're right, that is to be considered. Thank you. No one else?
Ah,
Go on.
alors, si on
So,
passe maintenant en ce qui a trait à l'offre municipale,
if we talk about
l'opinion demeure tout de même
the
positive,
opinion to
mais
municipal offer,
et
it's
cependant,
quite
Dieppe
positive in what we
est
noted.
aussi perçu comme offrant un bon rapport qualité-prix.
Dieppe is
Et
more and more
son
considered
satisfaction
to
aussi
offer
envers
a
les
good
services
quality
publics
of
a
life.
augmenté
The
légèrement
municipal services
globally.
have
Donc,
increased slightly
également, les
in the last
citoyens
3 years.
semblent
Globally,
satisfaits
the citizens are
de la gestion
satisfied
et tout
with the
en
municipal
particulier
management, but
de
also the
l'assainissement.
municipal infrastructure.
Alors, quelques résultats
So,
qui
a few
montrent
results here.
quand même les trois
Uh,
quarts de la population
Three
considère
quarters
que
of the
Dieppe offre
population
un
believe
bon
that
ou
Dieppe
un excellent rapport
offers good
qualité-prix.
or excellent quality
Cependant,
of
concernant
life.
les services
And this
publics,
is
ils ont
by
du mal
considering
avec
the
la
municipal
façon dont la
service that
municipalité les accueille.
they receive.
Alors, c'est quand même très bien,
So it's very good.
mais il faut
Uh,
noter par
but
contre
we
qu'il y
have
a
to
beaucoup
note
de
that
synonymes de
the
bonne
majority
plutôt que
are
excellente,
good
comme on pourrait le
rather
voir
than excellent, as we can
ici.
see on
Et
the table,
ce qui est quand
on
même
the chart. But
intéressant, c'est que les
it's
résultats sont
nevertheless interesting. The
très
results are nevertheless
stables.
stable for the
Alors,
last several years.
c'est un aspect tout à fait positif.
So this is very positive in nature.
Si on regarde ici au niveau des programmes
So as for the
municipaux,
programs, the municipal
le niveau de
programs,
satisfaction
so the level of
est déjà la
satisfaction
moitié
represent
de la
more than
population.
half of the
57%
population,
des habitants ont
57%
donné une note
of
de
the
8 à 10
citizens
sur un
gave
échelle
a
de
note of 8 to
satisfaction
10
de Dieppe
as to the
citoyen. Et
satisfaction of
presque
10
tous,
points. And
tous les autres
almost
ont offert
all the others
une note
offered
modérément
a
positive,
note
ce qu'on
that
appelle
was
la
moderately
volée basse,
positive,
qui est en fait de 5
and
à 7 sur
which
une
is
échelle. Et si on
5 to
regarde la
7
moyenne,
on the scale. If we
on
look
est
at the
supérieur. On
average,
passe
it's quite
d'un score
encouraging.
de 6
We go
en moyenne
7.6 as an average
en 2020.
in
Ça,
2020,
c'est quand même
and
assez comparable. C'est une légère
was
augmentation
quite
par rapport à
good,
l'année
a
antérieure.
slight increase
Mais
compared to previous
quand même,
years.
nous, dans nos
But
résultats, on la considère plutôt
in our
positive.
results, we consider it as being favorable.
On a aussi demandé le niveau de
We also
satisfaction
ask the level of satisfaction
envers l'offre d'espace public dans la
towards the
communauté
offer
par
of public
Dieppe.
space in the
Une bonne
community
majorité,
life, and a good
67%,
majority,
disent être
67% of the
satisfaits
population,
de l'offre
is
d'espace et
satisfied
d'équipements
with the
communautaires.
offer of
Donc,
public space
ça
and
nous donne
community equipment.
ça nous donne un petit peu
And this give
une
us
variabilité,
a
c'est-à-dire une
variability.
grande
It
proportion
means that there
des,
is
de la population qui
a
estime que
huge rate
Dieppe est
of
dans un bon
population
niveau
that is
de
positive and give
service,
us a
une
good
note
note, not
très élevée.
necessarily a
Donc,
very high
c'est une
note,
opinion positive
but nevertheless
intéressante.
positive that is interesting.
En termes de gestion municipale,
As for the municipal
la population
management,
demeure
the
généralement
population
satisfaite
remains
de la gestion
generally
globale de la
satisfied of the
municipalité.
global
Cependant,
management
l'opinion est
of the
partagée par rapport à
municipality, even
certaines
though the
initiatives
opinion
que le gouvernement
is
envisage.
uh,
Alors, regardons quelques
different.
résultats
Let's look at the
qui
results
permettent de déterminer ça.
and how
Nous
they
avons
help us
ici
to determine that.
évalué certains aspects de
We
la
have
gestion
certain
municipale
aspect of the
présentement
municipal management. There were
euh,
8.
de Dieppe.
Let's
Alors,
look on two slides. First of all,
la municipalité est
the
perçue comme un
municipality is
gestionnaire
perceived as a manager,
responsable.
as a responsible manager. So
54% de la
54%
population
of
sont
the
d'accord. Et
population
c'est-à-dire
agree.
presque tout le monde
And it's
donne
almost
une moyenne de 5 à
the
7
others
ou une
give
moyenne de
an
6 à 7.
average answer of
Il
5
y
to
a eu un
7,
léger accroissement
which
par
is
rapport
a
aux années
slight
antérieures, mais
increase
rien de
as to
significatif.
previous years, but nothing very important.
Euh, En regardant
By looking
ici les
in
résultats
this
de la
case,
modernisation,
the
la
results slight
municipalité
increase.
ici,
The
une
municipality,
bonne moitié de la population
a good
considère
half
que
of the
le
population,
gouvernement
said
accessible
the municipality
est
is
ouvert et
practicing
accessible,
an open
représente
and
environ
accessible
7,2%.
government, 7.4,
Il fait des
and
efforts nécessaires pour
it
impliquer
makes
les
effort
résidents dans la prise
to
de décision, pas
involve the citizens
différents
in the
interrogants
decision
aussi
making. We talk about
intéressants
40% of the
qui
population
pourraient l'être.
that is
Mais
of that
je
opinion,
trouve aussi
but
qu'on
it didn't
pourrait
change
donner
much
quelques
year
détails
after
comme
year. So over the
je pense
years,
que c'est à peu
it
près la même chose que nous.
means that it's
On a
relatively the
aussi
same as
parlé de la
before.
situation
The same
financière de la
on
municipalité.
the financial situation, municipality
On trouve qu'elle est
40%
très
believe
favorable. Mais
that is
aussi,
very
dans
favorable.
les temps
And
antérieurs,
we
par
have
rapport,
uh,
mettons,
previous
une
opinions.
comparaison
It's hard to make a
parce que
comparison
l'échelle
from
est
year to
très
year because
différente. On a une
the
échelle de
scale of answers was different. We
municipalité
had 1 to 10
différemment
this year,
qu'une
and
échelle de
previously it was a
métropole comme la
scale
ville de Luc
of
par exemple. Donc,
1 to 5 instead of 1 to 10.
on a beaucoup de
So
difficultés à faire des
we
comparaisons.
had difficulties to make comparison at that level.
Si on regarde pour les autres éléments qui
If
ont
we
été
look on the
évalués,
other elements
qualité
that
de
were
service des
assessed the
employés,
quality of service of
c'est vraiment
the
favorable.
municipal employees, it's quite favorable in general.
Quasi
And we look at
incompétence
courtesy and
professionnelle,
competency of the staff.
73% satisfaits
73%
de
are
la
satisfied of the
courtesy
courtesy.
professionnelle,
64% are
trouvent le
satisfied
travail
or
compétent.
find that
Donc,
the
une note
staff
disponible
is
de
competent.
6,9,
It's
ça
a
va bien. Il y a un petit peu
6.9. It goes well.
d'augmentation
Slight
au niveau
increase uh,
en fait, non, au niveau de la compétence ici, on ne voit
as
pas
to
qu'il y a une augmentation. Je
competency.
dirais que
We see
la
it's not an
satisfaction
increase,
moyenne, il n'y
but
en a
if
pas.
we look at
Mais
the
c'est sûr
average, there's none. So it
qu'il y a
means
plus
that
de gens qui ont
there's
exprimé une opinion cette
more
année
people who
qu'auparavant.
give an opinion this year than previous year. That's what happened. It seems to have increased, but it did not because more people answered the
Qualité de
question.
service de l'hôtel
The
de ville
quality of
est
service
aussi généralement
from
perçue comme
City
effective
Hall
à l'entrée
is, is
61%, une
perceived
moyenne de service
as favorable,
très
61%,
bonne selon les notes
6.7, slightly less than last year, but nevertheless
d'administration.
quite
L'administration
good.
est très
And
proche
the
donc
reduction was
d'un
very
positionnement similaire aux
weak.
États-Unis aussi. En termes de répondre rapidement aux requêtes et aux
As for
inquiétudes
answering quickly
des
to the
résidents, c'est un peu
request,
moins favorable.
that's slightly less
Ça
favorable,
représente une
but
majorité,
represent a majority
pas
of
tout à fait une
people,
majorité, mais
but not a majority, but
une note
uh,
quand même
a,
positive.
a mark that
Ensuite, on
is
avait
positive,
43%
and we're at
de la
43%
population qui
of
sont
the
d'accord, qui
population
croient que la municipalité
that
répond
believe
rapidement
that the
aux requêtes
municipality
et aux
answers
inquiétudes des
quickly
résidents.
the
Pour
inquiries or the
faire maintenant
request.
l'initiative
Now, as for
spécifique,
the
on a
specific initiative,
certains ici,
we
commencer
look
par
at a
le chantier
few
des routes.
things. The maintenance of the road maintenance,
58% des
58%
résidents et
of
résidentes
the
qui sont
citizens
satisfaits envers
are
le travail
satisfied
que fait la
with the
municipalité des routes.
maintenance
Euh,
of a road by the municipality.
je vais
In
quand
this
même assez bien
case,
distribuer
it's
les
quite
notes dans les
well
catégories. Ce qu'on remarque
balanced out.
aussi, c'est que presque tous les autres mettent
Uh,
une
Almost
opinion modérément positive.
everybody
Ça reste
gives
quand même assez
quite a moderate or good
au
opinion.
niveau des efforts que fait la
As for the effort
municipalité
that the
pour
municipality is doing
principalement les changements climatiques,
to
le
adapt to
plus
climatic
favorable est
change,
moins
the
prononcé.
favorable
On a
opinion
34% qui sont
is
satisfaits des efforts de la
slightly less,
municipalité à ce niveau-là
34%, thinks
et
that the municipality is good,
33%
but there's
donnent une
nevertheless
note
43%
négative.
that give a
Donc,
note
pas
of
tous ne
1,
sont pas
5 to
satisfaits
7. It's not they're not satisfied,
aussi
but they're not very satisfied
effectué.
of the effort that is being made. But
Quand on voit ces gens sur toutes les
when we
échelles de
look at that
municipalité,
kind
il
of
y a,
scale of 1 to 10, it can
ça peut avoir un lien un petit peu
it
avec le
can
manque
have
d'information.
to do with a lack of
On ne peut pas se
information.
rendre à conclusion
So we
unilatéralement
can't
que
come to
le
that
fait qu'il y
kind
ait
of
un
conclusion.
niveau de désaccord
But the
plus
fact
bas
that the level of
donc, ça peut
disagreement
donner
is
un
less,
indice
this can
très
give us an indication
modéré
that
des gens.
the
En termes
index could be a
d'élevage
factor.
de poules, on a vu
Now,
que
as
l'échelle
for
ici est moins
raising of poultry,
démographique. Il y a quand
it's
même
slightly less.
38% des
38%
associations
of the
qui
population that agrees
permettent aux gens d'élever des poules dans
to
leur cour. Mais
believe
il y a
uh,
13%
to
la
that
population
that is willing to let
à
people
cette idée-là.
raise chicken
Et
in
les deux
their
sont
yard,
plutôt dans un mode
and the others
négatif.
are moderately
On
positive,
fait de
but
6
the
à
average is
8,0. Donc, c'est peut-être qu'il y a un peu
6.0.
d'efforts à faire au
There
niveau
might be some efforts to be
de
made
garder
on this issue and
cette idée-là et
to
peut-être
look at
de
this idea
communiquer ou enfin
and
divertir
maybe to communicate
les
or
aspects
to
négatifs
look at the negative aspect that are considered on that
En
initiative.
termes de compteurs
Now,
d'eau,
as for the water
légèrement plus défavorable, selon
machine,
l'expérimentation de
less
comptabilité
favorable
des résidents
for
de
each
Québec, environ
residence
36%
in the city.
de la population sont en
36% of the
désaccord,
population disagree,
dont
and 56%
24%
disagree, and
sont totalement en
34% are
désaccord
completely
et le
in
désaccord
disagreement,
est de 30%.
and the agreement is 30%.
Enfin, on a eu une question
Finally,
aussi
we had a
au
question
sondage
on the survey,
une question
an
où il n'y
open
a pas de
question.
choix de réponse
There's no
possible.
choice of
On a
answers,
demandé aux
but
gens
we asked the
d'identifier la
people to
problématique locale
identify
ayant le
the
plus
local
besoin
problem
de l'attention
having the greatest need
de la
to
municipalité.
have the attention of
Probablement,
the
il
municipality.
y a beaucoup de choses.
What
Il y
we
a en
can
fait
see, there's a lot of
75%
things,
des
but
répondants
more than
voulaient du
75%
changement dans sa politique
identify
routière
one aspect
l'attention
that
de la municipalité.
draws the attention of the
Qu'est-ce qu'on voit, c'est
municipality.
que le logement
What we can see
abordable
is that
est mentionné
affordable
par
housing was
15% des
mentioned by
répondants. Et
15%
c'est
of the
aussi
citizens,
l'option la plus
and is
fréquemment
by far the most
mentionné
frequent mention that was made,
des
affordable
demandeurs.
housing, in all the answers
Suivi
given. It
par
is followed
des mentions qui ont
by
trait à la
mention that have
circulation
to do with
routière, donc
traffic,
8% des
road
répondants.
traffic,
La pandémie de
8%. The
COVID-19
pandemic of
avec ses
COVID
répercussions
19
sur
was
l'économie
mentioned by
s'en rapproche
7%.
un peu plus.
And maybe we should pay more attention.
Municipales
And the municipal taxes
ont été
uh,
mentionnées par 6%
were
de la
mentioned by
population.
6% of the
Enfin, la
population.
protection de
And finally,
l'environnement par
the
6%
protection
également.
of the environment by
D'autres
6%.
propositions
There were
sont
other
identifiées
mentions.
comme
Some are not
satisfaisantes pour les
mentioned here,
municipales.
but they are not the main. But those that I
Celles qui ont
did
été soulignées
identify are the ones that
il y a
came
aussi
out more often.
l'image
There was a question on the survey as to the
le
impact,
résultat de la
uh, the
COVID-19 sur
result
la
of
situation économique
COVID-19 and the economic situation of the
Donc,
people.
les résultats démontrent que
The results
les
show
gens, la
that
plupart des gens,
most
près de
people,
deux tiers de la
almost
population,
two
croient
thirds of the population,
que
believe
la
that
situation économique de leur
the
foyer
economic
est
situation
inchangée
of
depuis
their
le
life
début de
is
la pandémie,
unchanged since the
puisque
beginning of the pandemic. We say
situation
22%
a eu
of
une
the
détérioration
population have
de leur
had a
situation économique
deterioration of
et
their
13%
economic situation, and
une
13%
amélioration de
have
leur
had
situation
an
économique.
improvement in their situation.
Globalement, ce sont les
So
résultats.
globally, these are the results.
Je ne sais pas s'il y a des
I don't
questions
know if you have
ou je
any
peux
questions
répondre
that I
aux
could
questions.
answer if you have any questions.
Question, madame, monsieur.
Ladies, gentlemen, questions.
Merci, monsieur le maire. Ma question
Your worship, my question
le sondage par
has to do
rapport
with the survey
vivre
in
dans sa
relation
langue
to
maternelle.
living in
La
one's
réponse est
language,
surtout du côté anglophone.
especially
Vous voyez
with the
que le
anglophones. I
pourcentage
saw
est un peu différent du côté
that the
francophone.
percentage was
Est-ce que les
somewhat
commentaires par rapport à
different
ça, est-ce que
with
les
the anglophones. Was there
anglophones
any comments?
se sentent
Do the
moins
anglophones
confortables à
feel
vivre dans leur langue
less able to
maternelle
live in their language
ou
in
est-ce que
Dieppe,
c'est juste une anomalie?
or is that just
En fait, il n'y a
an
pas de
anomaly?
commentaires
There's
reliés
no
à ce résultat
comments related to
spécifiquement.
that
Il
result
y a des commentaires qui
specifically,
sont
but
ressortis
there are
sur
comments that came
d'autres
out
questions.
on other
Les
questions.
commentaires avaient un lien surtout au niveau de
Comments that had to
l'inégalité
do with the
des langues.
inequality of both
Donc,
languages.
il y a
There was a
vouloir
perception
autant vivre
that
en français
we
qu'ici.
can
En
live
fait,
as
vouloir autant
well
vivre
in French
en
or
français
in English than in
dans la
French.
ville de
Yes,
Dieppe, qu'on
in the
veuille
city of
autant
Dieppe,
recevoir les
we
services
can
en
receive the
anglais
service in
qu'ici.
English as
Donc, c'est
well
pas
as
seulement
much
de
as in French,
l'inégalité
but
liée
it is has to do with the equality of both languages.
recevoir ces services-là. Et je ne sais pas jusqu'à quel point c'est une question
I
de
don't know to what
perception.
extent it is a question
Parce
of
que
perception, but service.
Merci.
Thank you. Someone else? Yes, Monsieur Cormier. Thank you, Worship. My question in your sample of 300%, what percentage was francophone and what percentage were anglophones? Or the number?
je vais aller voir ça ici.
Let me see.
Euh,
We had
donc, langue d'usage. il y avait dans
language of use in the sample, not with it,
genre
200
francophone,
francophone
66
and
anglophone
62
et
anglophone
19 qui
answered, and
disaient qu'ils
19
étaient bilingues. Alors,
said they
on
were
a
bilingual.
ajusté les proportions
So we
parce qu'en
readjusted
fait,
the ratio.
en
So
pondérant les
by
résultats, ça fait
weighting in,
proportion à
it gave
environ le
a
quart des
proportion to a
francophones et le
quarter,
quart des répondants
close to a
anglophones.
quarter were anglophone,
Et
and,
à peu près,
and
donc
approximately,
sur 300
so
répondants, il y avait
300
50
uh,
francophones
who
et
answered
13
50,
anglophones et le reste
213
bilingues.
francophones, and the other is bilingual. Thank you.
J'ai quelqu'un d'autre qui avait la main levée, Madame Leboutier.
Ms. Leboutillier had her hand raised.
Merci, Monsieur le maire.
Thank you,
Merci
Worship.
aussi
Thank
pour
you
votre rapport. C'est vraiment
for
intéressant.
the
Mais
very
question
interesting. My
le
question
rapport lui-même et non
has to
seulement
do with the
les
report
questions.
and not the summary that you
Pour répondre à
presented,
la question
but
de
just to
21%
answer
là,
the
dans
question
dans le rapport en
21%
tant que tel, là,
in the report as
d'anglophones qui ont
such of
répondu
Anglophone who answered
au
your
sondage. Donc, ma
survey.
question était,
My question
pouvez-vous nous
is,
décrire
can you describe,
j'appellerais ça
how would I call it,
non, le rapport que vous avez soumis.
the
Il
report
y a
that you
des
submitted?
diagrammes, des photos.
There are
Qu'est-ce que ça
charts,
représente par
photographs.
rapport à
What
votre
does it
réputation
represent? If I go to page 11
de
of your
Dieppe est une
report,
excellente
it
communauté
says
de
Dieppe is an excellent community where to raise a family. We say 75% women, 71
Pourriez-vous décrire
men. Can
chacune
you
des boîtes
describe each box so that I can
Oui,
uh,
à la fin de
better
votre rapport?
follow at the
C'est
end?
vraiment intéressant.
Because it's really interesting.
oui, tout à fait.
These diagram,
Là,
those
je l'ai pas
charts.
à mon écran. Je m'excuse, on a un
I would
problème de
put on
réseau
my. We
dans notre
have
bureau.
a problem
Donc, je ne
where
peux pas avoir accès
a
à mes
network. I
documents
can't have access to my
présentement.
documents at the present time, but nevertheless,
Les graphiques ou enfin les illustrations auxquelles vous faites
the
référence, ça
illustration to
permet
which you
d'avoir
are mentioning
plus
allow us
facilement l'idée
to
globale
have a
des différents
different
éléments de la population.
uh,
Donc,
overview of
effectivement,
opinion. Uh,
si vous vous souvenez peut-être au rapport, donc, ça
some
donne un
look
aperçu
at the
de ce
report,
qui
but
est
it
donné
gives
en
an
premier
overview of the
au
difference
niveau de
between
l'histoire du
men and
Québec.
women, depending on
Les
the
changements
age
dans
group
les revenus,
and
l'âge,
relatively to
niveau de l'occupation des
household
gens,
and to the
travail,
education, the language
transport,
of use.
logement,
And I think we had housing
éducation
also.
et
All these had a bearing
regarder
on the
si
answer. And
effectivement
finally,
ces gens-là sont à Dieppe, habitent à Dieppe.
these
Donc,
people
je ne sais
live
pas si
in
ça
the app.
répond à vos
So
questions,
I
mais
don't know
c'est
if it answers your
intéressant de
question,
voir
but what it
qu'il y a des
does,
différences
it
d'opinion
helped to
ou
see
pas
what there's
nécessairement
a difference of
significatives
opinion. Sometimes they're
en
important,
proportion s'il y a une
but
différence
most of the
d'opinion
time, if there is a
de 6
difference
points.
of
C'est
less than
naturellement
6
qu'il y a
points,
une
well,
part
it's
initiale
always the
qui est
margin of error.
statistique,
There are other
mais
elements
c'est
that are
intéressant de
considered,
comprendre
but it
les différences
uh,
moins
allows to
importantes
see some difference that are
qui
less important
dressent un profil, si on veut,
and give a profile if you
de
wish
l'opinion de la population.
as to the opinion of
Je
the
veux juste,
population.
encore une fois, bien comprendre
Once again, I
votre
want to
rapport.
understand well, and I'll stop there. And
Monsieur Luc pourra faire.
maybe,
Si
Monsieur,
je prends la première boîte de
if I
questions,
take the first box, it says
répondant
75%
oui
women,
à la
70,
question Dieppe est une
71
excellente
men.
communauté
In
de
the Dieppe is
Dieppe est
a good community where there is
et
family. Does it mean
et
75% of women who answered that
sont
question
entièrement d'accord
are
et
completely in agreement, and 71% of the men
des hommes ont
uh,
répondu entièrement
answered
d'accord à cette
completely in agreement with that
Donc,
question? Yes.
pour
And
répondre
I
à
think
votre
that this is what
dans
is in the report.
l'illustration, vous allez voir le
In the
résultat
illustration, you will see
entièrement d'accord. Je crois que
that
c'est
they're
ça que
completely in agreement, or
oui, donc c'est exactement ça.
so
Donc,
that's exactly
naturellement,
it.
s'il y a une
So
différence
it
d'opinion, il y a
means
une part de
75% of women are
différence
completely in agreement and 71% of men.
Merci, c'est excellent. Bravo.
Thank you. Excellent.
Qui?
Bravo.
Quelqu'un d'autre?
Someone else?
Non?
No?
Ça va?
Okay.
Une fois? Deux fois?
Once, twice,
Vendu.
sold.
Ah, merci, Madame Perrault.
Thank you, Miss Perro.
Luc, toi, tu as
Luc,
des
I don't know
commentaires
if you have comments to make,
comme un wrap-up.
to do a wrap up if you wish.
Peut-être juste ajouter
Maybe I can add the fact that
dire qu'est-ce qu'on fait avec ce
the people will
rapport-là.
say, what do we do with this report? Is it simply
On a déjà eu une discussion
uh,
avec
document to be tabled. No, we've had a discussion with management and it continues. As for the results, each sectors were asked to bring out what was in the report that is pertinent to each one of their responsibility. So we'll have a follow-up in the weeks and months to come.
Disons, s'il y a des questions pertinentes, que ce soit les poules ou les
If there are pertinent questions, whether it's the chicken or water reader, then we can study more these questions. It was a survey where the people would answer one question, but sometimes maybe there was not enough information to make an enlightened decision. But we'll give a follow-up to the survey and we'll come back to the
Encore une fois,
council.
merci, Madame
Once
Perrault.
again, thank you, Ms. Barrow.
Et, les
And
détails sont très appréciés.
details are very well, a job well done. It is much appreciated. I'm convinced that the municipal council, but especially the administration, can take advantage of the comments. It will be up to the municipal council to support them where when need be and
Mais ça me fait
kick
plaisir.
them
Merci.
when we have to. Thank you.
Item 2.
Je vais vous quitter à ce moment-ci.
I'll leave you at this time.
Merci bien. Au revoir.
Thank you.
Ok, merci, au revoir.
Goodbye. Good night.
Item numéro 2.
Item number 2.
En retard de 10 minutes.
We're 10 minutes late. Doesn't matter.
Aménagement du centre-ville.
Development of downtown
Les arrêtés.
and the bylaws.
Oh, une seconde que je trouve le microphone pour.
Let me find the mic.
Non, non, c'est moi qui l'avais.
Oh, I have it.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le maire.
Thank you, worship. Oh, good evening.
C'est ça, ce soir, je pense que
Tonight,
je voulais vous présenter un peu
I
un
think we
survol
want to
de
present to
l'aménagement
you an overview of the management of the development of downtown in the last few years, the tendencies that the question have adopted with VSP and the urban. And tonight, just to globally present what has been happening in the last few years, the municipal council have adopted policies to stimulate the development in downtown, and we want to show you the fruit of the results that is relatively interesting. And we will send that file that we're talking about tonight. It would be important to take into consideration and the amendment, and we'll undertake the legal process on January the 25th with a public presentation and February the 8th. There's a lot of information that will be discussed during these 2 evenings. But tonight, we want to talk about downtown per se, and it's kind of introduction to what will be proposed during the public hearings for the municipal plan. Sorry. As for the agenda, the plan of the presentation tonight, I want to identify so people understand when we talk about downtown, we talk what are the limits of downtown? Where is it located? We will identify the zone of intents to stimulate the investment, where to give incentive. It's important to understand what the incentives are in the sector. I won't go into any details of the financial aspect. This has already been presented and accepted by the council, but it will give you an idea as to what is the percentage of the area where we specifically where we give incentive. And we'll talk, as I mentioned, the buildings that we've seen that we'll also talk about the present what we're proposing to be amended by city council, and we want to talk about the changes, the amendment, or compare what is done in Dieppe versus Moncton, because quite often we have discussion with developers. and we either have comments or perception where a certain city has an advantage over the other municipality or vice versa.
Mais,
But
c'est ça, ça fait. Nous, on veut vraiment
so
vous
we
montrer
really want to show you
le document,
what
ce que
is the
la ville de
document or
Moncton
what the city of
versus
Moncton
la ville de
has
Dieppe
in relation to the city of Dieppe, what are our incentives compared to the one in Moncton, and it is to show that in the downtown of Dieppe, we have incentives that are more attractive than those offered by the city of Moncton. I won't go into details. It was presented, and as the Service of Finance, that can better answer that question as to the financial support.
Donc,
So,
si on parle du
if we
commercial
talk about the business zone,
centre-ville,
the central business
qui est vraiment
quarter,
l'intersection, ça
you
se
see
trouve
the
entre
intersection. It's
Champlain
really at the heart of Champlain Acadie.
et en rose.
You have what is in pink. It
Quand
represents,
on parle en termes
when
de
we
superficie,
talk
on parle
in
de
square
49,25
kilometers,
mètres carrés de superficie
0.25
totale
of size on a total of 49.34 square kilometers for the city as a whole. It does
c'est
not
pas non plus
talk
un
about
silo.
the merger of the territory or the
Quand on parle du
source of water.
centre-ville,
When we talk about
ça
the
représente une toute
downtown,
partie du
it is a very small part, 0.25 square kilometers on a total of 49.34 square kilometer.
Ce qu'on regarde au niveau du
If we look as for the commercial zoning, what the downtown represents on the territory as a whole, that is zone commercial, 8.78% business commercial on the 100% of the commercial. So the downtown is really a small heart. It's a central. It's a small territory. We give incentive, but that's where it is. Since it's a small area, that's why it's important for us to make sure that the fund of development that are focused on downtown, they must really be aimed on downtown. If we talk about the intensification core, it's once again a smaller zone than the downtown. It's inside that sector where the municipality gives financial incentive for the size of the building, the commercial, the parking, the underground parking, and overground or in downtown. Now, as for the intensification zone, within zoning, zoning wise or size wise, it represents 0.4%. As for the total, we don't even talk about 1% of the full size of the town. As to the commercial zone, it's lower than the downtown. It represents 6.98% of commercial zoning for the whole municipality. As you know, the last years, the municipal council, with expansion Dieppe and the city, we undertook two distinctive studies. One was done by WSP, where their mandate was really to give a main plan to the city of Dieppe, and it was a specific study on for the planning, the density, and what should be in downtown. They gave recommendation to the city to make sure that the cabaret of 3, 4 stories make such that we will avoid premature public financing on the parking, whether it's for a garage or so on and so forth. They made some calculation. They made analysis as to the space. We talk about WSP. It was with the private sector or private property that belonged to Expansion Dieppe. And they came to the conclusion that the gabarit should be around 3 or 4 stories. Following the recommendation by WSP, we allowed two-story building. In 2017, we made an amendment to go with a minimum of three stories to be able to go up to 20 meters. That is approximately 5 to 6 stories high. As for the development guide for downtown urban, that was they presented a concept of development for the public sector. They talk about Gabarri, the Gabarri, their study came to the same recommendation, the same conclusion as WSP. The building of 3 to 4 stories, but they went further for the public domain. That it be the people that move the different access, whether it's the sidewalk, it's the public development with WSP. To all the information that we have received from the two private firms, we brought some changes. We talk about the height, we talk about the parking underground. Uh, as for the roof, where we allowed a flat roof, these are all things that we brought in the bylaw. And WSP goes back to 2017, and the development is dated 2019. Now, if you want to talk about the construction of the last few years, it's in relation to the recommendation that we receive with what we have within the zoning bylaw. This is to show what was done in the last few years. To give an example, the Quest building at the corner of Alagilet and Acadie, even if it's a building that is not inside the zone of intensification zone, they didn't have to meet the requirements of the zone at the present time as to the material and everything else. However, if you look at that building, it's a building that where they respected the character, the vision. When we look at the percentage, at the main floor level, we talk about a building with seven levels. If we look at the brick, it goes up to the third, and then inside the building for the human ladder, it is respected. It does not become frontage that is monotonous. It does not create a monotony. The balcony, we have balconies that are inside, even though they are shown, they go inside. So it's a frontage that is very lively. And they even went over what is the minimum required. And uh, there was a time of 6% requirement, but by considering what they brought the 20% of more entrance at the main floor, and we felt that it was reasonable to give this to the developer. Another building that was built in the 50 Market Street and Gova, there it's a building that meet our requirement and the vision of the city. So it's a building that was done quite easily, a three-story building. Uh, as for the vision of urban workshop, our famous alley, the evolution of we have a concept that they presented to us. We talk often about Govan Street. We created another street north-south that goes to Govan Street. This is what uh, Urban was recommended to what the sector could look like. And today, if we look at what the private developer brought, we have the same kind of gabarit as workshop, urban workshop was presenting. What is innovative for Dieppe is the commercial aspect. We have commercial at the main floor, but we work with the developer to allow him to have parking on the main floor. Everything that is commercial frontage on the public street, the commercial, or rather there are commercial unit, but behind these there is parking inside the parking. It makes such that is a win-win for the municipality and the developer. For the municipality, what is good is that it is space, it's real estate. We don't have to use for surface parking because it's inside the building. And for the developer, it reduces his risk as to the commercial, and he doesn't have to have a commercial at the main floor. We made a derogation, a variance, and what the changes we'll be bringing in the next month is something that will be part and parcel of the zoning bylaw. Another building that is presently underway to situate you, it's on Champlain Street. It's beside Uni, the Uni Financial building. We have a five-story building, uh, commercial at the main floor. The developer at the time was proposing a building, a four-story building. And when he noticed the incentive that he could receive with the incentive that the municipality was giving for those who develop a downtown, he decided to go one story higher by respecting the intention, the vision. After the fourth floor, there is a retraction to have a building that is at a more human. We have an example here where we say that our incentive allow a developer to increase the story. That was not the case when he came to meet us at the beginning before he undertook. Now, as for the proposal that we will bring, I will not go word for word, but main principle in downtown, we want to make sure that the building that will be developed in downtown, the greatest frontage will be in a public street. Want to avoid that in the property, especially we're asking commercial at on the main floor. We don't want the developer to come up with a smaller frontage and a long building will go behind in the back. So it would make great cutback in the urban. You have a building, you have space for parking, building and parking space as the most compact situation in municipality. We want to make sure that we create that ambiance that is pleasant for the user, for the pedestrian, and for the people that are using the downtown. So in downtown, if you have a property with a greater frontage on the public street, or 75%, because we will need to have an access to go in the back of the building for the parking. Also, other amendment, other changes has to do with we didn't have any definition as to the main floor. If we had a property where there is an unlevel, it could allow someone who wanted to make underground parking to go in height. If we calculated only the grade, well, we want our frontage to be commercial. We want to be attractive. We don't want it to become, as you know, some underground parking creates no life for the pedestrian, for the users, and we don't want it to become a prison style with a lot. So we identified that to, well, first of all, to have a definition to be able to of underground parking. Now, I think I have 3 slides left. Has to do with the standards of development in downtown Dieppe versus Moncton. As I said earlier, sometimes we hear people, you hear comments sometimes, well, Moncton offers this, Moncton has this, has that. Well, members of council, this is a document that will be public if ever some people want to consult a proposal from time to time. We have a legal opinion. The document will be public, and we want to show that what Dieppe is offering often are criteria that are less strict than Moncton or better or comparable. And if not, what we are proposing when we talk about specific material, us, it's 90% of specific material that had the frontage on the street and it doesn't have to follow specific material. While Moncton, as an example, is 100% of the building. The four face must be built at specific material. Financially speaking, there is an advantage for sure
Négligeable, merci. De
that
permettre
are
ça
not
à
negligible
moins
to
de
allow less, but we don't take away. What is important
des bâtiments qui demeurent
is the frontage of the building that face the public street,
qui est quand même
and
assez
also floors that are surprising. In downtown, when we talk about the parking, we don't allow parking in the front yard. Same thing in Moncton, they don't allow parking in the front yard. As for the height of the building in Moncton, in their downtown, even though some buildings are higher than that, in their zoning bylaw, the maximum height is 13 meters high for their building downtown. For us, it's 20 meters. So there's a possibility of intensifying more in the
Puis,
and
pour finir, la dernière norme, là,
and the last standard where Moncton can compare itself or offer something better than Moncton is that in Moncton, if you have a face of 19 meters, you must have inside your face each 9 meters, there must be an open. If you go up, you must be an
on
open
s'est dit, OK, ben,
on the
on va
story. But we said Moncton
faire
offers
une
this,
proposition
but they don't
qui
have to
permettrait
impose anything on the fourth floor. So us, what we're proposing is say, okay, we'll offer both. We'll have a choice. We'll give a choice to the developer either to do
fait présentement
what
sur
the
la rue
developer is doing on Champlain or to
aussi l'option de
also
créer
give the option
une
of
nouvelle
what is
structure
being done in Moncton
de
with the
manière
withdrawal in a horizontal on their building. So, Your Worship, this is an overview
qui s'est développé dans
of
les
what
dernières années, puis montrer
has
aussi
been
que
developed in the last few
certains
years and to show you the division.
des bâtiments
And even for division, some buildings were developed in downtown, but we've been able
des
to
dispositions de
meet
sécurité ainsi
our zoning bylaw that exists presently with our incentive.
des concessions des
It brought us to some reasoning,
pense qu'on
and I
pourrait
think that we're
utiliser
going in the right direction
permet certains
where we allow
de
some
lever aussi un
use
peu le
in
rideau
downtown,
de bois.
and
Il y a section de la rue
there's a
Acadia
section of
qui
Acadia Street where we will allow residential on the main floor. At the present time, it's not allowed. Everything that is east of Acadia should have commercial on the main floor, but some people want to come downtown. They won't have same incentive. It will be less encouraging, but there'll be residential also. What we want to avoid
centre-ville qui
is we have a downtown that is only
juste
residential where people
centre-ville
other than the downtown,
bien aussi pour les
it has to be
résidents de
attractive
Dieppe
to the other resident of Dieppe because we want to have
que ce soit
business in downtown.
un lieu
We
de
want
destination
to
pour
be
Dieppe
an area of destination. Don't want people to avoid downtown to go to Moncton because we don't have anything in downtown because we've accepted residential
donc
at the on the main floor level. That's all, Your Worship. Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. Any questions, comments, Ms. Arsenault? Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, Monsieur Frenet, I find that you did an excellent presentation. Frankly, we're very proud of you and your team and what you've accomplished, and also our developers. They seem to follow the regulations and what is acceptable in our community. Frankly, the buildings that they have built so far, I'm proud of it. Amiro and Gova, I find that it's fantastic, and there are others. I don't know all the names, but I'm very proud because our buildings are very nice looking. Thank you to all. Anyone else?
Non? Monsieur
No,
Godette?
Mr. Godet. Thank you, Worship. I have a question as to the commercial percentage versus residential. I wonder where do we have a too obvious saturation on the commercial aspect that it could cause some problems with the residential development of apartments because by forcing developers to have a commercial or business on the main floor. I know that we made changes recently that allow parking. Sorry, uh, can we say the percentage is high enough commercial? We can have some flexibility. Thank you.
Je peux répondre en partie à
I
cette
can
question.
answer in part. It's a part A that requires studies,
Vous avez
and I
raison
think that you have expansion
d'étudier
Dieppe
ça.
could have a mandate to study that with
C'est
specialized
une bonne
firm
question, mais
on the question.
on parle de
But
0,4
don't forget, we're talking about
Comme vous savez, le pourcentage
0.4%.
change, ça fluctue
The
au travers le
percentage
temps. Donc,
change, it fluctuates with time.
aujourd'hui, il y a
If
assez
we
de,
say today
il y a assez
uh,
d'espace de
there's enough
développement, on commence
commercial space and we
à mettre
start
ça
introducing 100%
des bâtiments
of
résidentiels dans notre centre-ville.
residential building at
Ça va
100% in our downtown,
on n'a plus la
well, we
possibilité
don't have the opportunity when the
de
percentage
très bien pour avoir
will be
plusieurs
good to
habitations
have
bâties
commercial. If we have a building that is there, it will not
là.
uh,
On
leave for
peut pas
100 years or more. We must not
chez nous,
depend on an annual percentage. We as planners,
celle de 5
we
ans,
base city on
c'est sûr
average of 50 or 100 years. We must
on
not be
peut pas s'attendre
reactive to
nécessairement
the percentage necessarily.
on
And I think
dit qu'on a quand
that
même
we are good
différent
when we say
des
we
centres-villes
have property around downtown, even inside
du
downtown,
résidentiel
and we allow
commercial à 100%,
residential and multifamily
c'est
at
plus difficile.
100%. I think
Il y
it's
a quand
crucial
même des
to
espaces
keep some
commerciaux
commercial
qui on
spaces.
va jamais créer
If not, we'll
un
never
espace de
be able to
développement
create
centre-ville.
what they're
Ça
trying to
fluctue
create with the
dépendamment des zones.
downtown because it's an area where people can work
Venir
and people can
visiter, venir
play.
les trois, qu'est-ce qu'on dit
What,
toujours,
what
les
do we
trois P,
always say?
ça serait
Normally,
de faire ça
it would be a mistake to do that based on what
en date
the
d'aujourd'hui.
percentage is that we have today. Thank you.
Quelqu'un d'autre?
Someone else.
Sinon, ben, merci pour
If not,
la
thank you
présentation.
for the presentation.
On va
And
arrêter pour quelques minutes avant de
we'll
passer
stop for a few minutes
avant qu'on puisse se rebrancher pour
before we can
portion à
uh,
vidéo.
continue with the
Ça va s'avérer très
in
intéressant.
camera portion that should be very interesting as always. See you later. Bye bye.